One is probably due diligence, particularly whether you're starting and particularly if you're buying a business. My background's as a CPA, and what I do now is help people get funding as a startup business, and specifically using their 401k or IRA, which is stuff they don't know about. It's what I mentioned earlier, that most people don't know they have the opportunity to perhaps use their IRA or 401k. So do due diligence, both in if you're buying a business. Make sure you ask a lot of questions of the seller, and that you're comfortable with the answers.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where we help startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Mickey Parker. And Mickey grew up in high school in Kansas, or did high school in Kansas, and then went off to college and got a degree in accounting and finance from Kansas State. Worked for a bank out of high school, as well as doing that, and had an uncle that sold his business, wanted to be an entrepreneur. The uncle offered him a job, so he moved there, worked for his uncle for about 5 years, and then worked for another business doing accounting for a period of time for about 20 years. Then at I think it was cousin's funeral, he got asked to come for a job for him to help assist with some accounting issues. Then worked for a privately held oil company as an accountant and consultant for a period of time. Joined another business group doing investing, and then took over managing the investment business, and has been helping startups and small businesses with IRAs and retirement funds. So with that much as an introduction, and hopefully mostly accurate, welcome on the podcast, Mickey.
Thanks, Devin. I appreciate being here, and yes, I think that's pretty accurate about. It's hard to think that what I've done over 40 years can be summarized in about 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's what I tried. You take a long journey and give the 30-second version. But with that, why don't we go ahead and unpack it a bit, because I'm sure there's a lot more detail that I didn't pack into that 30 seconds. So tell us a little bit about how your journey got started in Kansas going to high school.
Sure, I appreciate that. High school, ended up taking business classes, ended up thinking that accounting was the direction I wanted to go. So pursued that in college, got both an accounting and finance degree. That led me, I actually worked at a bank throughout, actually from high school years all through college. That was my first job out of college. And then had an opportunity, as you mentioned, to join a family member, an uncle who had been very successful in the oil service business, and he had sold his business and had gone to work for the business that bought his business, and ultimately decided, I think he was not a corporate type person. He was an entrepreneur. Ended up that he was he left that job and decided he was going to start some other businesses. And about that time, he had come to Kansas, said, "Hey, I'm starting some other businesses. We need some accounting help. Would you be interested?" And of course I was, and so spent some time with.
One quick question just on that. So definitely get out of high school working for that business. Uncle, offers you a job, and you do that for a period of time. Now I think, and maybe I'm or missed it just a bit. But between the time that your uncle sold the business and did his entrepreneurial endeavor, did you work for a different company, or did you work for the company that acquired, or kind of how did that transition work as you were before or going to your uncle and doing the startup life?
No, I was still in the banking business when he had offered that job.
Okay.
So had done that, and so I spent some time with his business, And about that time, another family member, happened to be my sister, calls me. Her husband had a business and it was growing, and it was back here in Kansas, so it was an opportunity to kind of move back home closer to family. So I left my uncle's company, moved back to Kansas, and became the controller, basically CFO of an insurance brokerage firm here in the Kansas City area.
Now, just out of curiosity, kind of what made you decide? Because, you know, both of them are family businesses, and I'm sure, you know, it can be great or it can be hard, but what made you decide, okay, I'm working for the uncle's company, but now I'd like to move to Kansas and, you know, move back to Kansas and do some of that? Was it wanted to be closer to family? It was a more exciting opportunity? Was a step up in pay? All of which are definitely understandable, you know, motivations, but kind of what made you decide to make that switch?
Boy, that's a really good question, and I have to think back a long time as to what went into all that. But I think it was, I mean, my aunt and uncle and cousin, for that matter, he was involved in the business, treated me exceptionally well. So I had no complaints really about leaving. I didn't leave because I was unhappy, but I think getting into a sister and brother-in-law's business, my mom and dad were much nearby. So I think that family was just a little closer. I wouldn't have to get on an airplane on Christmas to come be with Christmas with my family. So and as I recall, probably a bump in pay as well. So all of those things played into that.
Fair enough. And if you be closer to family, reduce the commute, get a bump in pay, that's definitely a good opportunity. So now you say, okay, going to switch over there, going to go do that. And so how long did you kind of work with that family business, or how long did that take?
Right. It was about 20 years. And ultimately, I guess that business sort of faded away. It didn't grow. And really, it came down to my uncle had passed away after 20 years in this one business. My uncle passed away. I go to his funeral. My cousin is now running that business that I helped start 20 years prior, or 25 years prior. And he says, "Hey, Mickey, this business is growing. Would you be? I need accounting help. Would you be interested in helping with it with this business again?" So I actually went back to work with the company that my uncle had started somewhat 25 years ago. So, but that required another move. So we actually moved to the Conroe, Texas area for a short time. That's about, I was there for about a couple of years before the economy went south in 2008, 2009. All the jobs went away, and I didn't have a job. So I actually was able to get a position as the CFO of a privately held oil company there in the Houston area, and spent some time with that business. So a little different. One is oil service business. One is actual oil production. So I actually got the opportunity to pick up some additional knowledge, I guess, in the oil business. But one of the things that came out of that position was the decision was made that we wanted to find other businesses. We really wanted to get out of just being an oil company and kind of diversify a little bit. And in that process, I identified a company, a financial services company that was based in California. And the outside CPA for the oil company and I flew out there, did some due diligence. He came back and told the owner, "I think this is something that would fit good. I think we could make it work." Ultimately, the owner, for her own reasons, decided not to do that. But the outside CPA liked the business well enough. He put a little investor group together, came to me and said, "We really like this business. I think we're going to go ahead and buy it. You've done a lot of work. You kind of understand what this business is. the intricacies of it. Would you come run it for us? So that's how I got actually involved in the position where I am now, and had the opportunity to become a co-owner as well. But it's almost been an entrepreneurial endeavor, because good or bad, the investors kind of stayed on the sideline. They were not involved on a day-to-day basis. So I pretty much had full control over what we did in the business, and those kinds of things. So I have enjoyed that process. And
just kind of one question on that, because and backing up on your journey just a little bit. So you work for the oil business. They do some due diligence. They pass on the deal. The investors, some of the people that were doing some of the work on it said, "Hey, we think that there's a good opportunity. Maybe they shouldn't have passed on it, or didn't fit with them, but they said, hey, we'd like to invest on it." And then they bring you on. Now, what made you decide to transition to going from working for the company that you're at doing the oil business to going to on more of helping to run that and working with the investment group? Kind of what was that motivation? Again, was it kind of, hey, this looks like a good opportunity, can't pass up? I always wanted to be more of a entrepreneur, have more direct in management and going on the investing side, or kind of what sparked that transition to go or to jump over with them?
Sure. I think the idea that I would have more control and actually be able to run the business. I thought there was a lot of growth potential in the business, which would ultimately in the long term be better for me and my family, probably financially. So all of those reasons. As it turns out, there ended up being another reason. The business is such that it can be run from anywhere, particularly with technology. So with me being in Houston at the time, it provided me the opportunity to actually move back to Kansas City with family and so forth. So that, while that was not an initial determining factor, it certainly helped to allow that to happen.
Makes sense. So now you say, okay, made the leap, going to do that, going to go in with the investor group, and that kind of is where you're at today. So now that you made that leap and bringing your journey or a bit up to where it's at today, was that a good decision? Have you enjoyed it? Where do you kind of, what has that journey been now as you said, okay, I'm going to make the leap to be more on the investor side and kind of help to manage or run that?
I'm so glad that I did it. I really enjoyed it. I think having that little bit of entrepreneurial side of it really gave or has given me the opportunity to look at what it's like to kind of sit in that owner seat. I don't think when you're an employee, you fully have an understanding of what the decisions are, whether it's personnel, whether it's markets, whether it's cash, funding, whatever it is. You're kind of getting your paycheck and doing your job to the best of your ability. But when you change one seat over and now it's kind of like the assistant coach to the head coach. I remember when I was going to K-State and we lost a longtime head coach, and the difference in one chair, moving over one chair makes a huge difference. And I think that's a little bit of what I felt here is moving from that employee to more of management control and decision making. That's a pretty decent leap.
No, I think so. And I think it presents an opportunity. It also can be a bit more, scary or uncertain in the sense that now, the further you move up, the less people you're accountable to, or the less people you can, go ask questions or get direction, because now you're the entrepreneur, or you're the person in charge, you're directing things, and the things fall into you. So it's kind of that, a new position that can offer a lot of excitement, but it can also offer a bit of worries. And so now as you're looking kind of, as we're at present day on your journey, and you're to look out to kind of the next 6 to 12 months, kind of where things are headed or what's in store for you, kind of where do you see things headed?
Well, it's very positive. Last year was the best year that we've had out of the last 5 or 6. And I don't see that slowing down. So I think I think we'll continue. My journey in this particular position is kind of twofold. One is educational, because what I do, and maybe we can get into that, but what I do is most people don't know they can do. So it's not like a plumber and you go online and find plumbers and just pick one. Most people don't know that they can do what I can show them they can do as a CPA. And the second side of it is the service, is that one of the things that sets the business apart from others is the personalized service that I feel we bring to our customers, that perhaps maybe the competitors can't do.
And I think that makes sense. And so, I think that it's an opportunity that people may not be aware of, but presents something that can be beneficial to their business. And so with that, now as we kind of reach the present day and even looking a bit to where your journey's headed, I always have two questions that I ask at the end of each journey. So the first question I always ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made? What did you learn from it?
Wow. I think it's the idea is just continue to look forward. I think there's a situation where you end up trusting some people you thought you could trust, and that ends up not being the case. So it sets you back a little bit, maybe disappoints you a whole lot. And I think what you learn from it is just be careful, ask more questions. I think sometimes you make assumptions when you work with people that you trust, that you can truly trust what they say, and doesn't always end up being the case. So ask a lot of questions. If there's certain situations, if I had to do it over again, would probably just ask more questions to become more knowledgeable and not rely on somebody else's trust.
Oh, I think that makes sense. That is always a hard one, because, if you're anything like me, a lot of times you are trusting, or you want to trust people, and you're saying, hey, a lot of times when you get started in business, you're saying everybody's going to work as hard as I am. They're going to be as trustworthy. We're all going to pull together and we're going to make it a success. Sometimes that's true. And other times people aren't, all have different motivations, objectives, and different levels of trustability and all that. So I think that it's one where you have to kind of learn those lessons along the way. And sometimes it's just a school of hard knocks, to where until you've been through it and understand that, you're not going to learn some of those lessons. So I definitely think that's a mistake that is often made, but also a great one to learn from.
Right.
Absolutely. Second question. If you're talking now to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you'd give them?
It's one piece, but twofold. One is probably due diligence, particularly whether you're starting, and particularly if you're buying a business. My background's as a CPA, and what I do now is help people get funding as a startup business, and specifically using their 401k or IRA, which is stuff they don't know about. It's what I mentioned earlier, that most people don't know they have the opportunity to perhaps use their IRA or 401k. So do due diligence, both in, if you're buying a business, make sure you ask a lot of questions of the seller, and that you're comfortable with the answers. But that also comes in the financing side of it too, is do some due diligence in what's available to you. Again, I use the idea that most people don't know they can do what I tell them they can do. So as they learn more and learn ways to finance that business, there might be ways to finance it that they just have never thought of or didn't know. And as they learn more about it, they could do some due diligence and see if that works for them.
I think that that's a lot of good takeaways and the great piece of advice. So, well, with that, as we're wrapping towards the end of the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor in your business, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
A bunch of ways. Accelifund.com, ACCELEFUND.com is our website. They can learn on the website more about using their IRA or 401k as startup capital. My email address, you're more than happy to contact me via email, is just Mickey, MICKEY, at Accelifund.com. And I have an office in Lenexa, Kansas, and that number is 913-274-1930. So any of those are great ways. There's a contact page on the website, so you can fill in your information there. If you're trying to get a hold of me, you're looking at the website at midnight at night, and you say, hey, I want to talk to this guy, you can fill it in, and I can call you the next morning.
Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect on any or all of the above. Definitely great ways to connect, and a great resource to have for your startup or your small business. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been it's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, we'd love to have you. Just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners, make sure to click subscribe, share, leave us a review, because we want to make sure that everyone finds out about all these awesome episodes. And last but not least, if you ever need help with your patents, your trademarks, or anything else with your startup or your small business, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Mickey, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.